Welcome to FearBound Stories. Please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let's begin. It was supposed to be a normal Friday night. 22-year-old Sophie Langford had been babysitting for the Carters for nearly 6 months. They trusted her. She was quiet, responsible, the kind of sitter every parent wanted. The Carters lived in a nice neighborhood on the outskirts of town. Big houses, long driveways, motion lights. The kind of place where people left doors unlocked because they believed nothing bad ever happened there. That night, the couple was attending a charity dinner. Their infant daughter, Emma, was already asleep upstairs in the nursery. Sophie had strict instructions. Feed the baby at 10. Check the monitors every half hour, and text once they got home. She didn't know that by midnight she'd be part of a police file titled, "Unexplained Incident, Carter Residence." The first 2 hours went by peacefully. Sophie watched a movie, made tea, and checked the baby monitor occasionally. The Carters had one of those high-end smart surveillance systems. Cameras in the nursery, living room, and hallway, all accessible from a single tablet on the counter. Around 9:47 p.m., she glanced at the nursery feed and saw Emma asleep in her crib. The room glowed softly under a nightlight shaped like a cloud. Nothing unusual. At 10:02, she warmed up a bottle, quietly walked upstairs, and fed the baby. By 10:20, Emma was asleep again. Sophie turned off the hallway light and came back down. But when she sat back on the couch and looked at the tablet again, something was off. The nursery camera showed the crib, and the baby monitor beside it. But in the corner of the frame, barely visible in the darkness, she thought she saw movement. It looked like the closet door shifting slightly. She squinted. The feed pixelated for a second, static lines, then cleared. Nothing moved. She exhaled. It's just the camera refocusing. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows in the room were heavier than before. At 10:45, she heard something faint through the monitor speaker. A sound like fabric dragging across the floor. Sophie froze. The tablet sat on the table, its speaker crackling. She turned the volume up. There it was again. Drag, drag. Like someone's foot sliding. She stared at the live feed. The closet door was open now, maybe an inch. Her first thought, did I leave it like that? She replayed the last few minutes, scrolling the timeline. The closet had been closed the whole time. Then at 10:43, the screen flickered, just a blink, and when it returned, the door was ajar. Sophie's heart started to race. She stood up slowly, grabbing the house phone. She told herself she was being paranoid. Cameras glitch all the time. Still, she went upstairs. The hallway was silent except for the faint hum of the baby monitor. The nursery door was half open. She peered in. Emma was asleep, peaceful. The closet door? Closed. Sophie let out a shaky breath and whispered, "Get a grip, Soph." She closed the nursery door, went back downstairs and turned the TV on. Low volume, just for background noise. At 11:08, the motion alert chimed again. She looked down. The tablet's motion light was flashing. Nursery camera detected movement. Sophie froze mid-step. She opened the feed. The closet door was wide open now, a black rectangle. The baby was still in the crib, but her tiny hands were moving restlessly like she was trying to grab something above her. The temperature overlay on the screen dropped from 72 degrees to 66 degrees. Then came a faint knock. Not from the house. From the monitor speaker. 3 soft knocks. She whispered, "What the hell?" The feed flickered again, and this time, something new appeared in the reflection of the nightlight. A shape, tall, thin, crouched low and right next to the crib. Its head tilted slightly, as if studying the baby. The camera autofocus kicked in. For a single frame, Sophie saw a face, pale, blurred with hollow eyes. She screamed and dropped the tablet. When she picked it up again, the nursery looked empty. Sophie called the Carters immediately. No answer. She tried again, a voicemail. She hovered over 911 but stopped herself. If it was a break-in, she didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no doors, no noise. She turned up the monitor volume again. Silence. Then came a faint sound and a whisper. Not from the baby. A man's voice close to the microphone. She's awake now. Sophie's blood ran cold. She ran upstairs, flung open the nursery door, and froze. Emma was sitting up in her crib, eyes wide. The closet was closed. Everything looked perfectly normal. Sophie stood trembling, scanning every inch of the room. She picked up the baby and whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart." When she turned toward the door, she saw it, the mirror across the room. Her reflection was holding the baby, but she wasn't looking back. The reflection's eyes were focused on the crib. Sophie's scream echoed down the hall. She bolted downstairs with the baby in her arms, grabbed her bag, and ran out the front door. The police arrived 15 minutes later, after a neighbor reported a woman screaming outside the Carters' home. They found Sophie shaking in the driveway, clutching the child. When officers checked the nursery camera footage, they confirmed there were multiple frames missing between 10:40 and 11:10 p.m. The thermal overlay showed a sudden temperature drop and, in one still frame, the outline of a figure standing near the crib. But the footage ended abruptly at 11:09, the exact moment Sophie dropped the tablet. When the Carters returned home, they found Sophie inconsolable. The police told them the baby was unharmed. The system logs, however, couldn't explain the corrupted video file. The next morning, the security company retrieved a backup from their cloud server. The footage uploaded successfully, but when they played it, the nursery appeared empty. No baby, no Sophie. Just a faint outline of a figure standing by the crib, staring into the camera. And in the final frame, as the feed glitched and froze, a distorted voice whispered, "You shouldn't have looked." The Carters moved out 2 weeks later. The house was sold quietly the next year. No new footage ever surfaced, except one still image the security company archived. It shows the empty nursery, the crib in the center, and a faint reflection in the baby monitor screen. A woman's face, pale, frozen in terror, as if trapped inside the device. It started with a simple phone notification. Motion detected, Zone 4. At first, Daniel Reeves, the night supervisor at Bridgeline Storage, didn't think much of it. The warehouse's motion sensors were sensitive. A bird could trigger one. A loose plastic wrap could set off another. It was 1:42 a.m. when he checked the camera feed. The screen showed aisle 4, a long corridor stacked with shipping pallets and steel shelving. The overhead lights were on a timer, dim, yellow, and flickering in a few places. He saw nothing, just stillness. He rubbed his eyes, muttered false alarm, and went back to his paperwork. But 10 minutes later, the alert buzzed again. Motion detected, Zone 4. Daniel sighed and clicked open the live feed again. This time, something had changed. One of the pallets near the far end, it was slightly shifted. He blinked. The angle could have played tricks on him. He replayed the feed from a few minutes earlier, frame by frame. At timestamp 01:39:52, everything was normal. At 01:40:01, there was a flicker, half a second of static. And when the image cleared, the pallet had moved a few inches out of line. He frowned. No way that's wind. The warehouse was massive, 200,000 square feet. And Daniel was the only one on duty that night. He stood, grabbed his flashlight, and took the walkie-talkie. He spoke into it out of habit, even though no one else was tuned in. Zone 4 motion, probably another glitch, checking it out. The walk from his office to aisle 4 took him through rows of cold concrete floors and high shelving. The air smelled faintly of oil and cardboard. The only sound was the low hum of the building's ventilation. When he reached Zone 4, he noticed right away. The pallet near the end was out of line, just like the feed showed. It held boxes marked Archive Property Records. Heavy stuff? No reason to move them. Daniel nudged it back with his boot. Nothing seemed unusual. He turned off his flashlight to test the motion sensor. No alert light, no movement. Everything was fine. But then he felt something. A vibration beneath his feet. Faint but steady, like machinery running deep below. Except the building didn't have a basement. He walked another 20 feet down the aisle. That's when the overhead light flickered once, twice, then stayed dim. He looked up and saw a shape at the far end of the corridor. Just a shadow at first, tall, still, too dark to be real. "Hey!" he called. No response. He aimed the flashlight. The beam cut through dust and gloom. But the far end was empty. The shape was gone. Back in the office, Daniel reviewed the feed again. His heart sank. The footage showed him walking down the aisle, and just as he looked up, a dark figure appeared behind him. Not close, maybe 20 feet back. It didn't move, it didn't breathe. Then the light flickered, and the figure vanished. He replayed it, same thing. He zoomed in frame by frame. The figure's proportions were wrong. Elongated limbs, head tilted sharply to one side, like it didn't understand how to stand. He whispered, "What the hell are you?" He called his manager, no answer. He texted the security company, saw no reply. Then the alert started coming faster. Motion detected, Zone 4. Motion detected, Zone 5. Motion detected, Zone 6. Every minute another. He opened the multi-camera view. Each feed showed empty aisles, but in every one something was off. Boxes were shifted. Tarps on the shelves fluttered slightly, though no fans were running. And one by one, the motion indicator lights turned red. All of them. Every zone. Daniel grabbed his keys and headed for the main door. He didn't even care about the lights or alarms, and he just needed out. But when he reached the front exit, the keypad panel blinked red. Access denied. Door locked. He swore under his breath. That shouldn't have been possible. The system wasn't tied to internal motion sensors. He tried again. Still locked. Then behind him, one of the motion lights flickered. Zone 1. Something was moving closer. He ran back toward the office to grab his phone. But the monitors were already showing static. Every feed was blank except one. Aisle 4. The image was frozen. Daniel standing there, flashlight aimed down the aisle. Except this version wasn't live. He was watching himself from minutes ago. Then the image moved, and the figure stepped into frame, walking toward him. Daniel stumbled back, eyes glued to the screen. The figure stopped halfway down the aisle and slowly tilted its head toward the camera, like it knew he was watching. Then, for the first time, it moved closer. Each step was silent. The motion sensor's red light blinked violently. Daniel turned off the monitor. The hum in the walls grew louder, pulsing. He heard the sound of a box falling, somewhere in the dark warehouse. Then another, and another. The sound grew into a cascade, as if something was knocking over everything in its path. He grabbed his flashlight and shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. The boxes stopped falling. Silence. He turned, and there it was. The figure, standing in the doorway of his office, motionless. Its face featureless, pale gray, skin stretched too tight. The lights flickered, and in that moment he saw its mouth open. Not like a scream, but a long, soundless inhale. Then everything went black. When the morning staff arrived, the warehouse was silent. Daniel's car was in the parking lot. His phone sat on the desk recording audio. The last 12 minutes of that file were filled with static and a low rhythmic sound that experts later compared to breathing. The motion log showed something strange. Every sensor had been triggered at exactly 2:13 a.m. and then stopped at 2:14, all at once. The cameras, all feeds corrupted. Except one. The aisle 4 camera had saved a single still frame, timestamp 2:14:03. It showed Daniel standing at the end of the aisle, flashlight in hand, and a tall, shadowy figure behind him, its hand reaching for his shoulder. No other trace of him was ever found. The security company sent a replacement supervisor a week later. He quit after one night, claiming to hear heavy footsteps moving through the dark even when every light was off. That camera, the one that caught Daniel's final frame, was disconnected after it began turning itself on every night at 2:14. Even now, when the night shift walks past Zone 4, they swear they can feel a faint vibration in the floor, like something still walking deep beneath the concrete. They called it Blackwell Tower, but it wasn't much of a tower anymore. A 12-story apartment block from the 1970s, wedged between two newer buildings, with cracked tiles and humming fluorescent lights that never seemed to turn off. Most people who lived there were long-term tenants, older folks, small families, people who didn't complain much. The building had charm, they said. But one thing everyone agreed on: the elevator was wrong. It wasn't broken exactly, it just had moments. Sometimes the doors would open to an empty hallway with no floor visible beneath. Sometimes it would stop between floors, humming softly like it was breathing. And sometimes, if you rode alone late at night, you'd swear it wasn't taking you where you wanted to go. June 12, 2023. A resident named Eleanor Finch, 28, moved into apartment 804. She was new in town, worked night shifts at a nearby hospital. Her lease included a small note from the property manager. Elevator runs slow at night, maintenance scheduled for August. That note would become part of a police file later, attached to the case titled The Blackwell Incident. Eleanor's first few weeks were fine. The elevator was slow, yes, but it always worked. It creaked, rattled, and paused awkwardly between floors sometimes, but so did everything else in the building. Then came her first night shift double. She clocked out at 2:37 a.m., exhausted, clutching a paper cup of cold coffee. When she reached Blackwell Tower, the streets were empty. She stepped into the lobby, the night guard asleep at his desk, the TV flickering blue light across the walls. The elevator doors stood open, waiting. She pressed 8 and the doors slid shut. That's when the camera feed caught her. The building had 2 security cameras inside the elevator, one facing the doors, one in the corner above the control panel. The footage later showed Eleanor yawning, leaning against the wall. Floor 1, 2, 3, 4. Then suddenly the display jumped. 7, 3, 6, 5, 9. The elevator shuddered violently and the lights flickered out. Eleanor flinched, gripping the rail. The hum stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then the lights came back on, but the display read B2. Basement level 2. The problem was, Blackwell only had one basement. Eleanor pressed the door open button. Nothing. She pressed 8 again. The elevator didn't move. She hit door open harder. Still nothing. She exhaled sharply, whispering, "Come on." Finally, the doors opened. A faint yellow light spilled in from the hallway, flickering like a dying bulb. The floor beyond was concrete, unfinished, wet in some places. Pipes hung low from the ceiling, and the air smelled of rust and mold. "Hello?" she called out, stepping closer to the threshold. No answer. Then faintly she heard it, the sound of footsteps echoing in the distance. She stepped out. "Hello? Security?" The elevator doors stayed open behind her, humming softly. The sound of footsteps grew louder, slow, dragging steps. Not quite human, not even consistent. Like someone walking barefoot through puddles. Eleanor's breath quickened. She turned back. The elevator's interior lights flickered, dimming. "Okay," she muttered. "Nope, nope." She stepped back inside and hit 8. The doors started to close, then stopped halfway. Something was in the gap. A hand, gray, slender, long-fingered, resting against the door edge. Eleanor screamed and hit door close again and again. The door slammed shut, trapping the hand for a second before it slipped free. The elevator jerked violently upward, shaking. She pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. The floor display flickered. B2, B1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then stopped again. She was stuck between floors. The lights flickered once more, and for a single frame, the security camera caught it. A figure standing behind her reflection in the metal door. It wasn't human-shaped. Its head brushed the ceiling, its arms too long, bent wrong. When the elevator finally started moving again, Eleanor sobbed in relief. The display hit 8 and the doors opened. She ran out, dropping her bag, sprinting down the hallway to her apartment. She locked the door, sank to the floor and cried. She told herself she'd seen a trick of the light, fatigue, stress, a glitch. But when she checked her phone, she saw a notification. Motion detected elevator camera 2. Timestamp 2:57 a.m. She hadn't checked the feed yet. The next morning, she told the building manager what happened. He shrugged it off. "There's only one basement, miss. Must have been a malfunction. We'll have maintenance check it out." But when she asked to see the security footage, he hesitated. "We don't normally show tenants that." She persisted. Finally, he agreed, but only for a minute. When he pulled up the clip, she watched herself step into the elevator. Then the timestamp glitched, skipping 5 minutes ahead. The doors opened again, and the camera showed her standing still inside the elevator. Completely still. Eleanor leaned forward. "That's not me," she whispered. Because the version of her on screen wasn't breathing. She wasn't blinking. And her reflection in the metal door was smiling faintly, but she wasn't. The manager stopped the video, pale-faced. I don't know what that is." She demanded a copy. He refused. He deleted the footage that same afternoon. 2 nights later, Eleanor took the stairs instead. 12 floors. By the time she reached her door, she was drenched in sweat. She didn't care. She wasn't using that elevator again. But when she got inside, she heard it. The faint sound of an elevator bell dinging. Then again. Then again. She walked to her window overlooking the courtyard. The elevator doors on the ground floor were opening and closing by themselves. No one inside. She called the building office. No answer. She called the police. They told her to contact management. By 3 a.m., the sound stopped. But the next morning, she found an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a photo, a printout from the elevator's camera feed. It showed the interior, empty, except for a faint smudge in the reflection of the metal doors. It was her face, smiling, even though she wasn't there. 2 days later, Eleanor didn't show up for her shift. Her co-workers tried calling, no answer. When building staff opened her apartment, the door was locked from the inside. Her phone was on the nightstand, still recording audio. The final 45 seconds were the sound of elevator doors opening, and a woman whispering softly, "8th floor." Then static. Maintenance checked the elevator afterward. They found nothing wrong, no mechanical issue, no missing parts, no basement level 2. But the technician reviewing the footage found something strange. Every night between 2:45 and 3 a.m., the elevator doors open by themselves and stay open for exactly 28 seconds. As if waiting for someone, tenants still avoid it. The new security company installed updated cameras, 4K, motion-synced, cloud backup. But the system logs show one persistent anomaly. Elevator 1, basement level 2, motion detected. It appears randomly. The camera flickers on, captures a brief glimpse of the empty elevator, then freezes on a reflection that isn't supposed to exist. And in the faint static, a voice always whispers the same two words: going up. Every city has a building people avoid after dark. For Henderson Square, it was the parking structure on 7th and Doyle, a gray 6-level concrete maze built in 1986, mostly empty except during office hours. By night, it became something else. Cold air lingered there even in summer, and the hum of fluorescent lights echoed off the pillars like whispers that never stopped. The cameras caught strange things sometimes. Shadows with no source, elevators moving by themselves, motion alerts that stopped just before security arrived, but nothing ever showed up on review. Nothing until March 14, 2024. That night, the shift belonged to Ray Torres, a 43-year-old security guard who'd been working there for years. He'd seen everything: drunks, vandals, even a few break-ins. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in exhaustion, bad wiring, and poor lighting. He clocked in at 11 p.m., poured himself a coffee, and opened the CCTV dashboard on his laptop. 5 monitors, black and white, time-stamped, silent. Just like always. At 11:36 p.m., a motion alert flashed on camera 2, level B3. Ray sighed. Probably another cat. He opened the feed. The screen showed an empty section of the garage, 3 parked cars, an exit ramp, and flickering light overhead. Nothing moved. He leaned closer. In the lower left corner, where the concrete met the ramp's incline, he noticed a faint patch of darkness. It wasn't the kind shadows made. It was too dense, too still. He squinted. That's new. He toggled the brightness, zoomed in slightly. The black patch didn't distort like normal shadows. It stayed solid. The alert went quiet for a moment. Then another one pinged. Motion detected, camera 3. That was 1 floor up. Ray clicked it open. The screen flickered once, showing the far end of the aisle. And there, barely visible between 2 parked sedans, was a figure. It wasn't moving, but it was there. A tall outline, featureless, facing the camera. He blinked, checked the feed timestamp. Then he switched back to camera 2. The dark patch was gone. He switched to camera 3 again. The figure had moved closer. Ray straightened up. Okay, someone's down there. He grabbed his flashlight and radio. Control to Unit 1. I'm checking motion on B3 and B2, possible trespasser. No response. His partner was off duty that night. He took the elevator down. The doors opened to level B3. The sound hit him first, that deep, hollow drip echoing through the empty floor. Then came the smell, damp concrete and oil. His flashlight beam cut across pillars, floor markings, and motionless cars. No movement. He checked between vehicles, around corners, behind columns. Nothing. Just silence and that constant hum from the old lights. He finally reached the spot he'd seen on camera. The concrete looked normal, except for one thing. A faint handprint smudged into the dust. Long fingers, too long. He froze. Hello? The sound of his own voice bounced back at him, distorted by the walls. Then from the far end of the level, a soft metallic clang. He turned sharply. Who's there? Another clang. It came from the stairwell door. Ray walked toward it, each step louder than the last. When he reached the door, he noticed the push bar had a fresh smear, black and sticky like oil. He pushed it open. The stairwell was unlit except for a single light flickering on the next landing. He called out, "Security, this area's closed." No reply. Just a faint shuffle of feet above him. He climbed 1 step. Then another. Something moved in the corner of his eye, the faintest twitch of shadow. He stopped, listened. The flickering light hummed overhead, and then slowly, something stepped into view on the landing above. It was tall, thin, the shape of a man, but hollow somehow as if carved out of smoke. It didn't move like a person. It bent, folded, shimmered slightly. Ray whispered, "Jesus Christ." The figure tilted its head, a motion that felt deliberate. Then it walked down one step, and another. Ray stumbled back into the door, slamming it open and running into the garage. He sprinted toward the elevator, flashlight beam shaking wildly. He reached the doors and hit the button repeatedly. The elevator dinged open, but it wasn't empty. A reflection appeared in the mirrored back wall. The same figure standing behind him, closer than before. He turned, nothing there. He backed into the elevator, heart pounding. The doors closed, and for a second he saw his reflection again. But his reflection wasn't moving. The camera feed later showed the elevator reaching the lobby. The doors opened. Ray wasn't inside. But 11 minutes later, camera 2 on B3 came back online. The dark patch returned, exactly where he'd been standing earlier. Only now it was shaped like a person. The morning shift found the security office empty, Ray's coffee still steaming on the desk. His flashlight was discovered at the bottom of the stairwell, the lens cracked, covered in a black film. The last few seconds of audio on his radio were garbled static, followed by a whisper that technicians couldn't identify. It wasn't English. It wasn't any known language. The company replaced the cameras 2 weeks later. But every night around 11:36 p.m., the motion sensors in level B3 still trigger. The new system labels it unidentified shadow moving object. Every attempt to recalibrate the sensors fails, and every once in a while the footage shows something else. A silhouette leaning against one of the pillars, exactly where Ray stood. Its head tilted slightly toward the camera, as if still watching him. The building remains open. Drivers still park there during the day, unaware. But the night guards refuse to patrol level B3, because sometimes when they check the monitors, they see a tall figure standing between the cars. And when they lean closer to the screen, it leans closer too. Gas stations are lonely places after midnight. There's something unnatural about the hum of fluorescent lights, the slow buzz of insects circling a single bulb, and the empty highway stretching endlessly into the dark. Carl Weaver had worked at the Henderson Junction Gas and Go for nearly 10 years. He'd seen everything: drunks, stranded travelers, truckers half asleep, and once, a runaway kid hiding behind the dumpsters. Nothing ever really scared him. Until the night the cameras started rolling, after the fire. It began on August 3rd, 2022, a Tuesday. The night was quiet, just like every other. Carl was behind the counter sipping cold coffee, watching the security feeds out of boredom. 4 cameras, one on the pumps, one at the entrance, one in the store, and one behind the building. At 2:11 a.m., the pump camera flickered, just for a second. Then came the alert. Motion detected, pump 3. Carl looked up. No one there. The station lights glowed over the wet asphalt, perfectly still. He rewound the footage, frame by frame. In one frame, a man was standing beside pump 3. In the next, he was gone. Carl leaned forward, staring. The man was tall, thin, wearing a hooded jacket. His face wasn't visible. He replayed it again, slower. The man didn't walk into frame. He appeared between frames like a skipped heartbeat in the footage. Probably a glitch, Carl muttered. But something in his gut told him otherwise. At 2:27 a.m., the motion alert triggered again, this time behind the building. Carl switched feeds. The back lot was empty, except for a flicker of light near the dumpsters. A faint glow, like someone holding a lighter in the dark. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. The air was cold, damp. He walked past the humming freezer unit, his boots crunching on gravel. When he reached the dumpsters, he froze. There were footprints in the dirt, barefoot. They led straight toward the back wall and stopped. There was no way out from there, just a solid brick wall. Carl went back inside, uneasy. He checked the feed again. The glow was gone. The footprints weren't visible on camera. By 3 a.m., he'd convinced himself he was imagining things. He shut down the lights, locked up, and went home. The next day around noon, the gas station burned down. The fire started near the freezer unit. Investigators later said it was likely an electrical fault. No one was hurt, but the building was a total loss. Carl came back 2 days later to help with cleanup. All that remained were melted shelves, twisted metal, and the faint smell of gasoline. But one thing survived: the DVR security system. It had been in a locked cabinet behind the counter, shielded by debris. When they powered it on, the system booted up perfectly. Every camera feed was still recording, even though the building was gone. The owner, Bill Hensley, thought it was a glitch. He unplugged the system, but when he took it home, the green light came back on by itself. The drives kept recording, and what they recorded made no sense. The first recovered clip was dated August 6th, 2 days after the fire. The footage showed the gas station perfectly intact. Fluorescent lights, shelves, posters, the counter, all normal. Except it wasn't there anymore. And behind the counter stood Carl. Bill froze. Carl hadn't been there. He was at home when that timestamp hit. And yet the man in the footage looked exactly like him. Same uniform, same coffee mug, same scar on his left wrist. Except he wasn't moving. He was standing completely still, staring at the monitor. The next clip came from 2:11 a.m., the same timestamp as the night before the fire. Pump 3. The hooded man again. Same position, same stillness. But this time the footage didn't skip. The man turned slowly toward the camera. His face was visible now, pale, hollow, eyes wide open. He smiled. Then the screen went black. Bill showed the footage to Carl the next day. Carl turned white. That's impossible. The local sheriff took the DVR for analysis. But within 48 hours, the sheriff's office called back, demanding Bill take it away. The system, they said, was malfunctioning. But the deputy who returned it wouldn't look anyone in the eye. Carl kept having dreams after that. He'd see himself standing behind the counter again, lights flickering above. Then the sound of footsteps, someone walking up to the glass door. When he looked out, he'd see the man in the hood, smiling, waiting. The next morning, he'd wake up to missed notifications on his phone. Every one of them from the same source. Henderson Gas and Go, camera 1 motion detected. The station had no power, no cameras, no building. Bill finally disconnected the DVR for good, cut the wires, pulled the plugs, everything. He drove out to the landfill to get rid of it. But when he came back home that night, the security system light was blinking on his living room floor. Green! Recording. He smashed it with a hammer and threw it into the trash. But weeks later, people in town started reporting something strange. When they drove past the old station lot, their phones would glitch. Some said their Bluetooth picked up a nearby signal labeled Camera Feed 3. And if they connected to it, even for a second, they'd see the same thing. The gas station fully lit, perfectly intact, and a man standing behind the counter, staring directly into the camera. One local reporter, Dana Riley, tried to investigate. She set up her own camera near the site at 2 a.m. She recorded for 2 hours. At first, nothing happened. Then her camera flickered. For a split second, the frame shifted. The burnt ruins were gone. The station stood whole again, and in the reflection of the glass door, she saw 2 people. Carl behind the counter, and the hooded man standing outside smiling at her. Her footage corrupted immediately after. It's been 2 years now. The land is empty, fenced off. No one dares build on it. But if you drive by on a foggy night, you can still see faint fluorescent lights glowing in the distance and a figure behind the glass still watching. And if you check your phone's Wi-Fi list, you might see a strange network name pop up. Henderson Gas CCTV 3. If you try to connect, the feed opens for 3 seconds, just long enough to see the gas station exactly as it was. Then the screen cuts to static. And in that static, if you listen carefully, you can hear a faint voice whisper, "Pump 3 is waiting." You've just crossed the boundary between reality and the unknown. If you felt the fear tonight, make sure to subscribe before you leave, because on this channel, every story is just the beginning. New nightmares arrive every few nights, each one darker than the last. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open. You are now part of the FearBound family.